This is the Danger Close podcast, Beyond the Books with me, Jack Carr. Welcome to the Danger Close podcast, an Ironclad original presented by SIG Sauer. My guest today is my dear friend, John Barklow. Now, we've known each other for creeping up on 25 years now. I met him in 1997 when I first crossed the quarterdeck at SEAL Team 5, where he was a diver attached to that command. He spent 20 years in the United States Navy, most of that time attached to Naval Special Warfare. He then went to our cold weather warfare training facility in Kodiak, Alaska, where he helped develop a lot of the gear and tactics that are still used today. He is now the big game product manager at SITKA Gear, which fires me up because I've known Jonathan Hart, who started SITKA, since we were 13 years old. To see that company go from inception to where it is today is absolutely fantastic. And to have John Barklow there attached is, that's just awesome. So if you like our conversation, be sure to leave a 5-star rating and review to help counter some of these big tech algorithms. And now, without further ado, my friend, John Barklow. You know, before we get into, I guess, how we met and all the rest of that, and then into Naval Special Warfare and into Kodiak and into all that stuff. Did you grow up doing all this awesome stuff? I don't think I've ever asked you that before. You just kind of, I showed up as a new guy at SEAL Team 5, and you're there, and you're already awesome, rock climbing and backcountry skiing and do all this stuff and have all these skill sets. And I don't even think I ever really asked you in all the years we've known each other, did you grow up doing all that stuff? Did you have a base growing up, going into the backcountry and all that sort of thing? When did that start for you?
No, I grew up in Cleveland, Ohio, and nobody in my family did anything. They didn't do any type of hunting. They didn't climb. They didn't ski, anything. And I didn't know anybody who did. And that's one of the reasons that, I so enjoy helping other people now, is because I didn't have that. I didn't have those mentors. Long time of school of hard knocks, of, lost opportunities. And I enjoyed every bit of it, made every mistake in the book probably 3 times over. But no, I didn't grow. I did some of those things, but I remember throwing a bunch of Dinty Moore stew and some, ravioli in a backpack and going out into the woods with the map and compass that I didn't know how to use, and just wandering around out there for 3 days, and making a fire and putting the can on there. And that's literally where it all started. But I've been similar to you in the sense that I've been very fortunate that I've known exactly what I wanted to do for the most part. And I just say I'm literally anymore like I have and am living my childhood dreams. And so, I just got lucky.
Dude, I love that. So what did you do before you joined the military? Were you doing some of this stuff starting, but besides the one trip that you just mentioned, were you doing some of these other things before you went to boot camp? And did you go in to be a diver? How did that work out, that path?
Yeah, that's a good question. So really, no, I didn't do a lot of this. I was, a 3-sport athlete in high school, starting on the varsity as a sophomore, had a couple surgeries, working jobs, after work and at night, to help my mom out. So really a lot of that kind of had to fall by the wayside. But, ultimately I tried to get into the Naval Academy one year.
Okay.
That certainly wasn't going to work. Went to Northwestern for a very short period of time to play football. Realized my passion wasn't there. I always wanted to go in the military. My father was in the Navy for a while as an officer, and always instilled this sense of patriotism and service. And when I was really honest with myself, all I wanted to do was go into the military, serve my country, and I wanted adventure. And I'd grown up with the Johnny Quest cartoons, and the G.I. Joe figures, and the frogmen and the seals and all that. They were just kind of, when you're a kid, you're talking, I'm talking early mid 80s back then. So very little information. I just knew I wanted to go do that. And, it was kind of a toss up between the Marine Corps and the Navy, but I just loved the ocean and that aspect of it. And so ultimately when I kind of got my stuff together, Went down to the recruiter 2 weeks later. I was off to boot camp. So
Okay. And what do you think drew you
yeah.
towards the ocean? What was the draw
I
towards that?
don't really know. I think part of it was my dad. He was stationed down in Pensacola. He did some diving way back in the 60s,
Oh,
a
wow.
little bit of marine biology. Of course, reading Clive Cussler novels, right? When you're a kid,
Big time.
I mean, it's got such a big impact. At least it did on my
Oh, yeah.
youth. That I just needed that in my life. I wanted that. There was no question once I was honest with myself that is the direction I wanted to go. I didn't know exactly all the details, but I knew that's what I wanted to do. And as soon as I did it, I was a happy guy.
Yeah. No, it's interesting you
Yeah.
mentioned Clive Cussler. I get to meet him before he passed away. Amazing guy. I've been reading his books for forever. And so did John Hart, who started SITKA, of course. So
Yeah.
before I went in the Navy and before he started SITKA, we were reading those books and we were taking our rescue diver classes and our dive master courses and all that stuff because I was prepping for the Navy and he was prepping to go into he went to someplace in the South Pacific to do
Oh, he was
some
a treasure
diving.
hunter.
Yeah, it was amazing. And I would have gone with him if I wasn't going into the Navy. But it
Yeah.
was a total, Dirk Pitt, Clive Cussler adventure that he was going on down there. And I would have 100%
Absolutely.
been going with him had I not been going to boot camp. But yeah, Clive Cussler novels, man, those things. I mean, gosh, I think he had one a year. He was one of the first authors to write one book a year because there was him, Stephen King started doing it, and then it didn't really become the thing that you did with a serious character until the late 90s with
Okay.
Vince Flynn and Brad Thor and Daniel Silva. And then it became kind of normal. But back when he was doing it, it wasn't normal. It was like you wrote a book and then maybe it'd be 2 years, maybe it'd be 2.5 years till the next one came out. But with him, bam, he was doing one a year. And
Yeah.
I think Raise the Titanic, which people think was his first book. It was not his first book, but I think that's the first time that seals are mentioned in fiction, which is
Oh,
kind
really?
of interesting. Yeah, yeah.
Wow.
But so you go down there, you head to boot camp, and are you on the whatever version of the dive fair program was going on?
Yeah.
Did you
So
know you were going to be a diver?
it was still called the Dive Fair program.
Nice.
88 is when I enlisted. So had to take a 2-month stop right there in Pensacola. I went down to Orlando, had to go to Pensacola for 2 months of photography training.
Oh yeah, because you had to have a source rating.
Well, yeah, and here's the back then, I mean, things changed so quickly, but it was so funny because I picked it because I said, what's the shortest? Because I didn't know about it. I had to pick a school. I said, what's the shortest school I could go to? And they said, well, photography school. I'm like, well, I'll take that. And they're like, nobody gets it. It's too hard to get. And the funny thing was I had almost failed photography in high school as a senior. That's another story. Anyways, I go there and all of a sudden there's all these guys, and I won't mention their names. Some of them are still on active duty, but a lot of them from the community, who they all did the same thing. They wanted to get the buds, they wanted to get the dive school, and all they wanted to do is get the shortest school. And I still keep in touch with a bunch of them. The funny thing was I almost failed photography school in high school, and I graduated as honor man from the Navy.
Wow. I don't know what that tells us about the military.
No, it's a funny story. It's all about playing the game, right? Working the system. And anyways, yeah. So, and then right to dive school down the road in Panama City. And
how is that? Is that like, is it the pool comp type stuff that you have to do there? Just like second phase, a buds type thing, or what's that school like? And what's the attrition rate like?
Well, so it was interesting. I don't think the attrition was very high. I mean, I do remember some people flunking more from academics than the physical, but and isn't it funny when you think back on things and you're like, that couldn't have been true? Because in comparison to today, it's so much different. And you're like, did that really happen? But I won't remember the year, but let's just say 99, I went through second phase with some FBI HRT guys.
Oh, nice.
And so I got to compare and contrast. And yeah, back in 88, it was a couple months long and there was a week of pool comp. And there was lots of rolling around in sand and lots of ocean swims and not buds, but much different than what it became later on. And I had already had my scuba qual, and I just felt, I don't know, I just felt comfortable in the water. So that I breezed through all that for the most part. Well, at dive school,
school.
Second class dive school. Yeah, second phase, that was easy too, because I didn't have to clean my room or any of that. But all the things that actually makes it really hard. But yeah, but the other thing is, so I wanted to go to San Diego for forever. You grew up in the Midwest, you want to go to the beach. I want to go to San Diego. So I put San Diego 3 times on my kind of wish list. Nice. I ended up in the Philippines.
That's how it goes. Yeah.
And the thing is, though, that I didn't realize.
All right, tough guy. All right, smart guy. 3 San Diegos. Guess where you're going?
Yep.
Yeah.
But that literally set the course for the rest of my life. Like that command, the people that were there, the way it was structured, the things I got to do, kind of forward deployed out in the Pacific. Like, it just set my mindset and my attitude for the rest of how the military I felt should be and how leadership should work. I've just never looked back from that. It was, mostly Vietnam vets. So you have to think maybe this is early '89. A lot of those guys were at the end of their careers. They were cycling back through the Philippines. They wanted one more tour, right? One more shot at the title there in the Philippines. Most of the gear was still Vietnam era, just the way everything worked. I remember the platoon cycling through there. That used to be a place that guys would go. But it was just a different, I don't want to say different military, but just a different way of looking at the military, just that kind of forward deployed nature of it. Very small dive locker. I think me and another guy were the only 2 people who weren't E6 or above. And we were like E3s or something like that. So
that's pretty cool. As an E3, so you're like 19 years old, something like that?
I was probably 20 at the time. Yeah, I was 20 at the time because I turned 21
in the
over
Philippines. There. Yeah. Everybody who's listening probably remembers Officer and a Gentleman. Remember his flashbacks to being a kid in the Philippines?
Yeah.
In that movie. His dad's a Navy guy and he's over there in the Philippines getting his first tattoo and all that stuff.
Yeah, we won't go into any of those stories, but I'll just say that we worked a lot. We were diving 6 days a week. It was all scuba. It was just a really unique place. And I came out of there, and I forget, I wished I could have access to the database anymore, but I literally came out of there with months of accumulative bottom time. Like if you were to add it up, we were diving 6 days a week, 6-8 hours a day. Quite frankly, statute of limitations up. We were like exceeding all the dive tables. We were treating all these nationals from all over the Pacific in the one recompression chamber. Guys dying, cardiac arrest, guys coming back to life at depth on oxygen, just crazy stuff. It was an amazing 2 years, but like I said, I met my wife there, but it set the course for the rest of my life, let alone my military career. So everything else has kind of been downhill since then.
No way. Well, that's amazing. You had such a wonderful experience, especially having put down San Diego 3 times. Now you're going
right.
It's called the Philippines. What's going on there?
I had no idea where it was.
And what was it? Was Guam Unit 1 at the time? Were there units at the time, and was this a specific dive command, or was it part of like what command was it that you were attached to in the Philippines?
Yeah, so it was a specific dive command, and I couldn't honestly, I don't know the name of the bigger command. We were tucked into this little bay. We were on one side. Our dive locker was on one side, Vietnam era dive locker, and then directly across was where the teams would deploy. That was the unit. That unit moved to Guam. Okay. So if that was Unit 1, then that was still probably Unit 1. And they had the old PBRs. Like they had I'm telling you, it was really crazy. I mean, everybody walked around in jungle boots and greens, and it was pretty wild. But we were just tucked into this little part of the base, and we were on one side of the little inlet and they were on the other. And and that's,
what were you diving on back then? Were you doing stuff on ships? Like what does a diver do in the Philippines at that time in the military?
Yeah. So because we were kind of, I don't want to say forward deployed, but out there in the Pacific, that these ships on Westpac and things, they would come in, they'd have some damage or they'd have an issue. I forget one of the ships. I wish I could remember. That's why your history's so good that you post. But one of the ships came in that had hit a mine out in the Gulf.
Whoa!
And they had some people die, and we dove on that and did the battle damage assessment on that. If nuclear subs came in, because it was, I forget what they considered it, because it wasn't like a home port. It was still kind of like they had to have security swims whenever they came in. They had to have security swims when they left. We'd occasionally go and dive on, one of the carriers. the Midway, not the Midway, but I'm not going to forget. But some of the carriers from Vietnam were still in service back then. And anyway, so we just did stuff like that. A lot of body recoveries, a couple helicopter crashes that we went and worked on. But I mean, we had more work than we knew what to do with. And I just assumed it was like that everywhere,
Right. Do you remember what mine
which
that
wasn't.
ship hit? Was it like just an old mine that was floating around from, like, I don't know, years past that just happened to break loose from some harbor somewhere that was mined? Like, is it like, what kind of a mine did that thing hit?
I wished I could remember, Jack. And honestly, I've tried to go back and find what that was. And then honestly, I get distracted with something, but I don't want to tell you it was necessarily a terrorist incident. I don't think it was one of the many that kind of led up to 9/11. But I'm not saying it couldn't have been. I just don't remember. But I do remember the ship coming in, and it was pretty obvious because there was a lot of damage above the water line, but then obviously there's damage below the water line.
Yeah, because just like there are places around the world that have been heavily mined and then abandoned, and no one knows where those mines are. And there are all
the
sorts
Gulf,
of
the Gulf's one of them.
Yeah, exactly. So there's all sorts of there's different organizations that go out there and want to find these mines so the kids don't stumble across them playing soccer and blow themselves up and that sort of thing. But same thing with mines that are meant to be in harbors, at sea, in the water. There are still mines out there that are broken away or whatever else that are out there. And every now and again, I think somebody runs into one or finds one anyway. It has to be decommissioned and taken out of the ocean. That's wild. So then your second one, do you, and as you're going along this path, do you go to a more advanced dive school after this? And then where do you start getting into the backcountry skiing and the rock climbing and all those things that are still so much a part of your life today? What happens after that first deployment or first command, actually?
Yeah. So after that, I went to first class dive school back to Florida, got married to
What do you learn at
Jules.
first class dive school? What's different?
So back then we actually learned underwater demo, if you can believe that. And it was basically underwater demolition, mixed gas diving, so deep mixed gas diving, and then how to become more of a supervisor as opposed to the person in the water. You're kind of more of that supervisory role. So I don't know, that was another couple months and did that. And then the one little dip in my whole 20 years of active and 6 years additional with the Navy is I went to this salvage command in Virginia Beach. And it was right across, literally right across the street from SEAL Team 2. Where the pool is and all that.
Sure. Yeah. I know exactly what
you're
talking about.
It was, it was a miserable 2 weeks and, or 2 years. And I almost got out. I met some really good people that eventually, ended up going to Buds and stuff. Anyways, long story short.
Was it bad because of the leadership or because of the job? What you had to do
the leadership. If I was on the road doing salvage up and down the East Coast, it would have been just fine, But the leadership was just horrible. So, but anyways, I get this call from literally right across the street at the pool, and my wife was a Navy reservist at the time, and she overheard the commander saying that he needed a diver to replace a guy that had just gotten a DUI on his transfer orders. And literally within 2 weeks, I was working for Naval Special Warfare, and I never left for 20 years.
That's amazing.
And when I moved across the street to the pool, we started teaching lock-in lockouts from the escape trunk they had there.
Wow.
Free swimmer ascents. We taught dive soup and dive the repair, and then we were actually teaching. It was the one place outside of Coronado you could teach guys to dive dragger. So we taught a lot of PJs how to dive dragger. It was really weird back then what you could do. But anyways, that's when I really started getting into the climbing. Not so much the skiing, although a little bit of skiing, but really got involved with the climbing. Some guys at the command climbed. I met some friends who ended up being, just civilians that happened to be like mountain guide types. And just every weekend, I really started to like live my dream again after I'd left that one command and got with a lot of like-minded people. The one thing that I always say I appreciate about Naval Special Warfare, and I think it's what makes the community as a whole as strong as it is and capable as it is. Because if you have something to contribute, they will take it. If you say, hey, I can do this, I can contribute. It doesn't matter who you are, what you do. If you can do it, if you have something to contribute that they need, you are able to do that. So anyways, it was just great. And so I did that for a couple years, did some ultra marathon running and some adventure races and
yeah.
a lot of
Did you do the raid? What did you do?
The Eco Challenge in British Columbia.
Okay.
Yeah, in British Columbia. And so that like all these things are starting to open up my eyes to the possibilities, like the mountains and the bigger mountains. And, I mean, we were doing some climbing, but not what I wanted to. And so there was a trip to Yosemite there and a trip to Red Rocks in Nevada. And I was like, I've got to get back to the West Coast. I still want to get to San Diego. I still haven't been to San Diego yet. And so those guys said, hey, anywhere you want to go, that we can get you, we'll try to do it. And I said, I want to go to a team on the West Coast. And I ended up at 5 in early 97.
Oh, wow.
And
so you got there just before I did then.
Yeah. And then
I got there late 97.
And then everything actually just like had gas poured on it. And my career and like all this stuff we're talking about just accelerated once I was on the West Coast.
Because then you're going to Joshua Tree, you're going all these different places.
The mountains were bigger and like they were iconic places. And, now I could really get into backcountry skiing. I took trips to Alaska, on my own. Yeah, I mean, I love the job. The job was awesome there as well. It was there was not a lot of free time between that and doing what I was trying to do on the weekends. But
yeah, it was cool. You take guys, people might not know, you take like new guys. We showed up and I remember I went to a school, I forget what it was comm school or something like that. But just on your own, you're taking like Nick Hawks, who now does paleo treats. We're in this first platoon. You guys are climbing in Joshua Tree and he comes back and they're all talking about you and what an awesome trip that was and everything like that. So it was so cool. I mean, you contributed so much to that command that was not part of your job description.
Well, and so that goes back to if you have a skill to contribute and that's something that they want, then NSW will hear you out. And I'd say the one thing that I did with the climbing and some of the training I did kind of off my standard duties, but also with my diving. And you probably don't know some of this, but I was always willing. I was confident enough in my skills. And like I said, I'd learned in that first command from these Vietnam era guys who were senior chiefs and master chiefs now, that listen, you know what you're doing, you know the rules. Because you know the rules, you can kind of bend them to fit the situation. I was willing to do things, quite frankly, that other people weren't, because they were afraid it was going to be career ending. Not because we were doing something illegal, but because nobody had done them before. They weren't written down. And that's why I started, souping all these, Dregger dives and stuff. And some of our mutual friends, they wanted to do some things that hadn't been done before or that nobody could find in the manual. And I'm like, listen, as far as I can tell, we're meeting all the criteria of safety. We're going to push the limits, but I'm totally fine with that. So, kind of that culmination for this, this little tale is Dregger dives to the cliffs at San Clemente, coming off bag and rock climbing out of the water, setting cave and ladders and doing a cliff assault that way. Awesome. And that just was one of those things. You're like, we climb ships, but do we climb this? And like, how do we do that? And what's the safety? And you have sharp things and they're around, life vests. And it's like, I mean, if we don't try it now, then we'll never know if it's going to work, And I think that attitude of not only confidence, but like, listen, I know the rules. I know we can pull this off and we'll do everything we can to mitigate the risk. But at the end of the day, we're going to train hard. And, if things happen, then, I'm okay standing in front of the man, so to speak, and answering for that. The culmination, I would say, of the climbing was when we went to Yosemite and we had free reign of the park. Because one of the guys at 5, who you may know, he used to be a ranger there.
Okay.
And so he got us into the park. And I mean, we were doing, climbing at night on nods, fully kitted out, weapons, like everything
Nice.
you couldn't do unless you
Right.
kind of had the Willy Wonka golden ticket.
Yeah.
And I remember rolling up. We patrolled up to this one climb in the middle of the night. We climbed it during the day to kind of, make sure we kind of knew what we were doing. We patrol in at night, and there's a there's a guy and a gal at the base of this climb. They don't, I mean, I'm
Yeah.
sure they knew it was a climb, but they don't. And we're watching them, and they're sitting there smoking weed, and they're probably getting ready to fool around. And all of a sudden, these, we said, hey,
Yeah.
and these two guys step out, and they're fully kitted out, right? Weapons. And they're like, hey, could you guys move down the cliff a little bit? And I mean, just watching the terror in their eyes
That is awesome.
was pretty hilarious. But yeah, that's the kind of stuff that, I was willing to do to push the limits of training, not knowing what was going to happen, right? In just a few short years,
Right.
kind of after that,
That's amazing. I remember going over the beach in Marina Del Rey, LA, and coming out of the water, going over the beach and walking by people in Los Angeles on the beach right there that are, getting after it in their own way. Which is
Yeah.
pretty, you patrolling by them, weapon full on, all set up in the dry suits and everything. But that was, pretty interesting. But you know what you just said right there, there's a difference between confidence and competence. And
Yeah.
you can have the most confident person out there that has no idea what they're doing. They're just acting a part. And when you see someone who is confident and more importantly, competent, and that's what was so, so noticeable about you is that you had that. Yes, you were confident, but you're also competent, and those two things are different, and they're important that they go together.
Yeah. Yeah.
Rather than just have someone who's I'm super confident, and then everybody, it's just So you need that competence piece, and that's what really you exemplified to all of us coming in the door there at Team 5 as new guys.
Yeah.
Which was
No, I
which was awesome.
appreciate that. Another thing we did with our friend Mark down there in Salt Lake is, when Mark was still kind of, getting his foot in the community, getting his foot in the door of the community and things like this. But we were trying to figure out a way to assault these cliffs like in Pendleton, right? So these steep earth kind of cliffs and really, at the time, 5 was focused on Northern Asia. So predominantly, outside of China, it was North Korea. So it's like trying to find ways to get across these beaches that are a little different. And, but again, doing swimmer ops over the beach, swimming in with ice tools and crampons and ropes, and then, coming to the beach, setting security, and the guys literally dry tooling up steep earth with ice tools to get ropes in place to bring everybody else up. And these were the kind of the things where I was trying to blur the lines, right? Between like this, I can do this water thing for you guys, but I can also kind of do this other thing, and we can blur the lines and really like, see what the capabilities could be, for some of these things, thinking outside the box, right? Which we've all had to do in the last, we all had to do in the last 20 years, right? We had to think outside the box, trying to get to places that, that nobody'd been or nobody thought you could possibly be there, be it crossing a river or going through a mountain pass or whatever the case may be. How do we do these things? And guys like Mark, I give a lot of credit to for helping me expand, my vision of what was possible.
Oh yeah. Mark Twight, I have his book right over there. Extreme Alpinism is over there. Yeah, I read
the
that.
Bible.
Gosh. Yeah, I read that. Gosh, how many years ago is that? Probably 30 now, maybe 25, like a long time ago. 20 at least, I guess.
20 at least. Yeah,
20
I'd say 20 at least. Yep.
Yeah, everything that came out back then. Of course, the Freedom of the Hills. I had that book, all those volumes from when I was a little kid. I collected all those going along, and it's just anything that had something to do with mountaineering, with first aid in the backcountry, all that. So I've just have all these tons of old books over there from growing up with that love of getting into the backcountry. But you gave me some great ideas for my next book, by the way. As soon as we're out done with this podcast, I'm going to jot some things down because I think I have some over the beach action coming up in this next one that I'm working on now. And did you ever get to go to Israel by any chance? Because the Israelis, Flotilla 13, they do some interesting things. They don't just have the same LAR 5 dragger that we had for so long. I don't know if we still have it, with minor modifications here and there. But they have so many different specific rebreathers for different applications. So very small ones that you're wearing coming out of the water, and you keep them on doing the mission and come out because they're so small and you're only in the water for a certain amount of time. Mm-hmm. So they have like 5 or 6 different variations of rebreathing systems or underwater breathing apparatuses that allow them to do different missions, whether it's against a boat or it's against, or you're going over the beach, or if you're going over the beach and then going inland for a while, or just going up, hitting really quick and getting out, like those sorts of things, or taking somebody with them, whatever it might be. They
Interesting.
don't just
Yeah.
have, okay, we have this one thing, this LAR 5 Draeger, which looks very similar to the one that you see in pictures from like 1970, maybe earlier.
From Jacques Cousteau.
Yeah, it's pretty much the same setup.
Yeah.
And then you're planning this mission around this one kit and its capabilities. Rather, the Israelis are like, well, hey, why don't we change this, this, and this, and have multiple different ones for different mission sets, depending on how long you need to be in the water and what you need to do. So I've always really admired them for that in particular, just because they didn't let a piece of equipment dictate what they could do. They modified it, went out there and looked at the private sector and told different companies what they needed, and they have an arsenal of different rebreathers that they can use for different mission sets, which I think is
I mean, that's the unconventional warfare, right? Thinking outside the box, being able to do things that nobody else does or thinks you can do. I mean, that's kind of at the foundation of what this all is about.
Oh yeah, being agile, being adaptive. That's what really allowed us to do what we did on the battlefield over this last 20 years. But so where did the hunting get into this? At what point does that become such a big part of your life?
So I grew up hunting. Like I said, nobody in my family did it, but for whatever reason, like I was drawn to archery hunting specifically. Like I loved that they could, wear camo and paint up their faces and like all that stuff that you'd love as a boy, right?
Yeah.
And I also love the time of year that I could hunt in Ohio, which is almost 2 months through September and October. So, I like to say I'm a self-taught archery hunter that failed miserably, but enjoyed every second of it. Like, never killed a deer, but spent a lot of time in the woods and just absorbed it all. And so I had, hunted a little bit in Virginia Beach when I was there, hunted a little bit in California, but really the mountains were the big draw to me. Not understanding that at some point this was all going to come together, right? Like I said, moving in a certain direction, but not exactly understanding the details. So after 9/11, when I got asked to go up to Alaska, and we, kind of went through that first year of just insanity, which I can barely remember. That's when I said, hey, I am literally, again, in this place of childhood dreams in Alaska where Fred Bear and all these guys used to go, and now is my opportunity to kind of, because I didn't know how long I'd stay there, now's my opportunity to try some of these things. And so that's when, I went headlong into hunting, and all of a sudden the hunting and the mountaineering and all that started to dovetail together to become this, mountain hunting thing that I ended up doing.
Yeah, you guys are something very unique. So for those listening, we have a cold weather warfare training facility in Kodiak, Alaska. And it was always my favorite trip in Naval Special Warfare was to go up there. Now it's part of the training program. If you come in to be a SEAL, you go to BUDS, you go to SEAL qualification training, and a month of that is going to Kodiak. So everybody has this baseline. Back in the 90s or early 2000s, you had to be in a platoon that was scheduled to go to Kodiak because you might do some things in the mountains or in cold weather. So I was lucky enough to be a Team 5 and be able to go up there for those trips. And gosh, I just loved it up there. I love Kodiak. I can't wait to get back. I can't believe I haven't been back in the last couple of years. I've had a few opportunities and life is just so busy, but you got to go up there and you got to go all in, and your whole, it was your job and it was your passion to do these things. So a lot of the things that we're using today in the military and now in the private sector, the things you do for SITKA, you got to test all these things out, and you had a bunch of people that you could test it out on yourself, most importantly, but you had students coming through. So you had to get all this feedback from other people other than yourself. And then you got to go out to different trade shows and talk to different companies and test out different materials. And in this place, for those who haven't been to Kodiak, it is an incredible environment up there. It's maritime, you're on the water, it's cold, it's damp, it's raining, it's sleeting, there's salt water. It's a tough environment up there. It's a
Very
great
challenging
place to test gear. So, and you were up there for a while, and I got to go back and visit you again and went to your house and saw your bows up there. You had, I'd never seen somebody with all these different bows for different things. I was like, oh my gosh, I'm falling way behind. Cause my present to myself when I graduated BUDS was a bow from Performance Archery.
Nice.
So I had Bob Frome put it together for me.
Yep.
And I still have it today, actually. And And yeah, it's old school, 1997. And so I was always into that from when I was a little kid. And I remember going to the backcountry with my dad in the Sierras, right outside of the Marine Mountain Warfare Training. What do they call it? Marine Mountain Warfare Leadership School, I think they call it, or
Mountain
what?
Warfare Training Center in Pickle
That's it.
Meadows.
Yep, that's it.
Yep.
And I remember we were going in, and I had my frame pack. I think it was a Kelty at the time, super old school. So this is probably like 1985, maybe even 84. And we're going in, and it's raining out. We're headed in, and this guy's coming out, and he's in, the camo from the woodland camo from the time, and he is face painted up, and he has a bow, and he's walking out, and I was like, oh,
how could you not want to do that?
Awesome. Yeah, so cool. I didn't put it together till years later because there wasn't an internet. You couldn't just go,
right.
But like Sierra, military. So I didn't really realize what he was. It was obviously from the Marine. I mean, he was definitely a Marine. But it was so cool to see that guy just emerge. And of course, that's the time of Red Dawn, of Rambo First Blood Part 2, all these things, Uncommon Valor. I'm watching all these things, and I'm going to the military, and to see this guy walk out with that bow. Oh man. And I've been just shooting at targets my whole life, but to see him come out of there, obviously a hunter, I was like, oh man, there was like nothing cooler than that.
This
guy
is a real thing.
Walking out. Yeah, that was amazing. But so you're in Kodiak, and now hunting and mountaineering converge.
Yeah. So the interesting thing is, and I've said this before a few other places, but when 9/11 happened, it really took all of us by surprise. Because none of us, I think, ever thought we'd be fighting in the mountains, high altitude, certainly in Afghanistan. I don't think we certainly, as far as I know, nobody was training to that capability, right? And we used to have a very robust cold weather capability in naval special warfare. I think you were at one of the premier teams, but the reality was, that institutional knowledge had retired and moved on, and all the gear was out of date, and nobody really knew how to kind of do this. So, I was asked, I was one of, I don't know, like 10 people, like kind of picked from NSW, me, right, of all people. And I get asked to go up there 2 weeks later. I'm on the road with Jules driving to Alaska.
What did she think about that, by the way, initially?
Oh, well, so my wife, so at this point, Jules was in the Air Force Reserve. She was a combat photographer. And so she was deploying and flying around. So she's like, oh, hell yeah, let's go to Alaska. Like, no problem. We don't have anything tying us down, no kids, no home. Like, that's kind of the way we've structured our life, or I did, to take advantage of the opportunities as they came to me in the military, because I knew that, windows of opportunity open and close. And if you can't move through them quick, then they close. Maybe sometimes they never open again. So we got up there, and we've all said, like, the golden Connex box opened. Well, I like to say the golden credit card came out as well, because basically what we were tasked to do that first year is, we're getting after action reports and all kinds of chaos coming in from overseas, and we needed to not only build the gear, procure the equipment we needed, but also begin to try to write some real basic TTPs around some of that, and some training, right? And so, like you said, people weren't coming up there regularly, and certainly they probably wouldn't have if they didn't need this particular thing we were doing. So my point is, I got to go and work with some of the best designers in the outdoor industry, some of the best companies in the outdoor industry. Everybody was very patriotic at the time, and they're just like, listen, anything you need, whatever it is, like, you want to change a color, you want to design something brand new from the ground up. And so this is where the beginning of my product development kind of life began, right? Just seeing what it took to do these things and all that. But so we had that going on. But the interesting thing was then trying to figure out how to create a curriculum to teach somebody not only how to use the equipment, but how to, like, move around in these austere environments. We've talked already that, we've had many, many years of being out there backpacking around, in my case, maybe bumbling around, making all these mistakes, but I was moving in a direction. I had already climbed some big mountains. I'd already climbed some alpine routes. I'd already done a bunch of backcountry skiing. I'd already worked with Mark and started to figure some of this out, because I just reached out to him and said, hey, how did you climb the Czech Direct? Like, you brought all these goo packets. Like, how does that work? Like, what about the stove and fuel? Like, I was already pursuing this kind of as a personal interest.
Yeah.
not understanding that ultimately this information was going to help, the war effort at some point. So anyways, the cool thing was, Jack, that not only did I have some skills and experience, and I thought I was good, but in reality, I wasn't even close to being good. But this feedback loop now that started to develop where we would take some gear, we would develop something, we would go try it ourselves as a cadre. Then we would teach a student or a bunch of students. We'd see how that information was digested, what worked, what didn't, how we could reframe or restructure the curriculum, and then try it again. And so this feedback loop is really where I began to learn myself, because it wasn't just me in isolation. It was how to communicate ideas, how to communicate, mindsets, and then see how people, implemented that in the field in very challenging conditions. And then you would start to apply some tactics to it, right? Because we did teach a lot of what we'll call basic students, but then we would have people come in from other units and say, hey, we have this particular problem. Can you help us solve it? Or, hey, can we do a little bit more of this that you guys, teach at a basic level? Can you do it at a more advanced level? Or, hey, can you travel to Colorado or Utah or some other place that has the right environment or the right altitude or the right, geography where, we can go and try some of these things. And so that feedback loop was so vital to my own personal learning, because it wasn't just me now. It was this collective group, this cohesive group, this little ecosystem that we had. And then we would just keep changing stuff out, and trying something new and trying it on ourselves and failing, and then coming back and doing it again. And, it really, because, the shackles were off during that time frame, and, the bureaucracy wasn't what it is today, or what it even was probably, 10 years after that. I like to say the military and special operations were probably 20 years behind of the civilian world and kind of the outdoor industry as far as technology and understanding and mindset. I think we surpassed them by at least 10 at that point in time. Things have kind of probably leveled up a little bit, but that's because everybody's pushing now, but at least we've kind of come back up to parity. But it was a really big catch-up phase for everybody.
I remember getting into Team 5 and I thought, oh man, when I walk across this quarterdeck, that golden Connex box is going to open. I'm going to get all this awesome gear. I'm going to get a little pager. It's going to go off in the middle of the night. We're going to go off, do the Save the Princess op, get home, get back to the bar for beers the next night. Yeah. So I got there, the outdoor gear that they gave, all the gear they gave us. I mean, we had, the Vietnam era stuff that I was getting at the Army surplus store as a kid is the same stuff that I got issued at SEAL Team 5 when I showed up. And then the outdoor gear was just like someone in supply going through and being like, okay, boots, how many people do we need? Okay, those boots look like something they could use. Check.
Yeah.
How about this? Oh, a Gore-Tex jacket. Oh, I think we already have one of those. Oh yeah, that's a woodland camouflage one. Okay, check. That was like, 30 pounds. But it was crazy because I had always, I don't know what it was, just innate in me from when I was a little kid, always looking at gear and always looking at, and I grew up in Northern California. So there was a community up there of people doing similar things. And I could go to REI, I could go to North Face, I could go see people climbing on these different mountains and see what they were wearing, and then kind of take note of that and go back. And so I had that from a very early age, and I always wanted gear that would allow me to go further and faster into the backcountry. And always in my head, I'm thinking about SEAL teams in the future. That's my goal. So no matter what I was doing in the backcountry, I was always thinking, how does this prepare me for what I'm going to do in the future, even as a little kid? And that gear was just a part of that. And I got to see that, just how what I had used with an external frame pack. And then I saw the first Dana designs came out, or first one I saw anyway, maybe 86 or 87, somewhere in there. And of course got one of those. And, that was different at the time. And of course people, internal frame packs, and it was a big thing. And it was a, controversy when it came out. Of course, that's all you use unless you're packing out a lot of, a huge animal or something. But gear has always been an important part of my life, pre-military, in the military, after the military. But what we got at Team 5, oh my gosh, and across, special operations in general was terrible in 1987. And the boots they gave us and sent us to Kodiak with were ridiculous. I mean,
Yeah.
no support in the ankle, and you're carrying at that time, you're carrying like 100, especially as a radio guy or an AW guy, you're carrying like 120 pounds worth of stuff after you swim over the beach and stuff that,
Maybe
you know,
150.
a
Yep.
lot,
Yep.
and
Yep.
just stuff that dry
Yep.
suit into your bag, you know, and then head
Mhm.
up onto into the snow. But the gear was just atrocious. So you're right, we were 20 years behind.
Well, and what
And
was it? 10 years for sure, but within 5 years of 9/11,
yeah,
like,
oh
so
yeah,
we, a
totally
lot of
different.
us bought our own
Yep,
gear to do our professional
yep,
jobs because the gear was so inadequate.
exactly.
But then within 5 years, and certainly by now, right
Oh yeah,
nowadays, I mean, they've got, most of the guys have, which I have no problem with, but they have more stuff than they even understand, right,
yeah,
how to use, and
sure,
they don't, if they, hadn't lived through that or heard about it, they would think we're crazy when
right.
we used to go down and get, our uniforms tailored to do specific things.
Yep,
You're like, what? And it's like,
yep.
yeah, nobody did any of that stuff.
Oh yeah.
It didn't exist. So, um,
Yeah, and then
yeah, it
there's
was
a
a
lot of
completely different
Velcro
time.
companies made a lot of money there at the Velcro and yeah, tactical clothing type companies or whatever, you know, just moving some
Yep.
patches around there to see the
Yep.
evolution of it all. And I kept all my gear, and this is such a painful
Mm.
story to even tell. I kept it from 97 all the way, well, pre-90s, yeah, early 97. So I have my Bud's knife somewhere. It's over there in the corner, actually, in a glass case, and the rubber band around it has melted into the glass at this point. But I kept everything. So I had a history of gear, naval special warfare gear from 97 up through 2016. I kept every boot. I kept every harness. I kept every single load bearing gear equipment, all of that stuff. So I could see how it got light. It was heavy and like,
Hmm.
well, way overbuilt, and then how it got lighter. And then I got to, and when we moved from San Diego, I put it in my friend's garage, and he then got a divorce. It went to the
Mm.
wife's house, and then anyway, like all
Oh,
of it's gone.
wow.
All of it's gone. All that history is totally gone. And not totally. I kept my newer stuff, the stuff that I would
Yeah.
still throw on today to go get after it. But all that stuff that I had held on to, just because I would, if in my head, I'd be like, okay, what did we use in 2003? Or what was I wearing in Ramadi? What was I wearing in
Which
Najaf that
probably comes
summer?
in very
Uh,
handy now with what you do,
it
right?
does. It does.
Yeah.
Now I have the photos, but I would love to be like, okay, photo, okay, this is Najaf 2004. Okay, I see the picture. I could go to a gear bag in the garage and pull it out and start messing with it and be like, no way, that's what I was using back then. I can't believe we did that. Or I see how this evolved. But
Hmm.
most of all that stuff is gone now. And I'm
Yeah. I
so
still have
bummed.
some stuff. I definitely have some stuff from my first command in the Philippines and a few pieces. I have a big, my father made me a big wooden sea chest when
Oh,
I
nice.
retired. And I've got all this stuff in there. And at some point, I'm not ready yet, but at some point I'll go through all of it.
Yeah.
But, so various pieces over the years that had some sentimental value, like my very first pair of Vietnam era jungle boots I got
Oh,
issued in the
nice.
Philippines, and my greens, like I still have those.
That's
Like, I don't
awesome.
know, probably by luck that I kept them, but I
Yeah.
still have them, and just stuff
Oh,
like that. But
yeah, I don't even like to think about all the stuff that disappeared, because
uh,
I like to hold on to all that gear.
yeah,
And
no,
I
for
had my
sure.
Buds boots, and like the side of, you can totally tell like the side of the boot is just totally worn down from all that running, and so it shows how I run. But I was gonna bronze them one day, kind of like how you bronze little kids' shoes.
Yep,
I wanted to
yep.
bronze them one day, and now they're gone. But at least I have a few things. I have my knife, and I think I have one set of greens, maybe, and one brown T-shirt from after Hell Week, and all that sort of thing. So I
Yeah,
do have some stuff, but not nearly
and
what
it
I
doesn't
wish I
mean
had.
anything to anybody else but
No,
you, right?
no.
But that's the special part of it. It's that sentimental value.
Yep.
Um,
Oh,
yeah.
exactly. Oh, it's so painful. Oh, so painful. But and so what was the when did you get to that point where you're like, okay, I've done what I can here in Kodiak. This has been a good run, and now it's time to move on, because you had a solid run there. And I mean, I can't think of anybody who had more of an influence on naval special warfare, mountaineering, warfare tactics, gear than you did during that time frame. What made you want to move on? I mean, you had a long run there, so it wasn't like you just did a couple years and moved on. Like, you were all in up there, and it
Yeah.
was awesome to see how things evolved and see your impact on the community. But what moved you on to the next stage in life?
I just think realizing that I had done everything I wanted to do,
Yeah.
and a lot more. We had just got done writing, I forget what it was, like, but basically the TTPs for cold
Mhm.
weather warfare. And quite frankly, I mean, at a certain point, you can't keep up with the young guys. Like, I was able to keep up because my skill set was so much higher that I could rely on that. But once I went past 40 and a couple years past that, I just realized that not only was I, kind of lost half a step, I'd done everything I wanted to do, but quite frankly, it was time for other people to kind of take the reins. And that's the only way things advance, right? Because if not, then it's going to be me and my mindset, and this is the way we do it. Now, I don't ever want to be that guy. And so I had to really put the ego in check and go, all right, it's time to move on. This was going to come to an end at some point anyways. I'd rather leave on my own terms than someone else's. And so I really started to think about that. And I would tell you, to be honest, probably 2 years prior to me actually retiring and moving on, I knew I was ready to go. But I'm a person that wants to, I definitely want to have a plan.
Oh yeah.
At least a direction to go. And so that's kind of when I started saying, what do I like to do? I wanted something I was going to be passionate about, because for 26 years, I'd been passionate about every single day, waking up and the guys I worked with. And I knew it wasn't going to be the same, but I wanted something that was kind of the civilian equivalent if I could get it. And, I wanted to work in an industry where people enjoyed themselves and kind of had, some fun. And so hunting it was either hunting or the mountaineering avenue I wanted to go. Hunting seemed to be the better fit for me at the time. And literally, I remember sitting straight up in bed from a dead sleep at like 2 a.m. And the thought went through my head, go to work for SITKA Gear.
Nice.
I didn't know anybody there. I had nobody in the hunting industry I could reach out to, and all of it. I just said, that is what I need to do. And so I just kind of, starting to collect and get all my stuff in order to kind of drop my papers and leave. And I get a email from a guy at Gore. So the military side of Gore used to come up because we were a schoolhouse, and they would run things by us like, hey, try this, or hey, try that, or does this have any interest? And they had some really stupid stuff. Some of it was good, but a lot of it was crazy, like trying to swim so you imagine a dry suit, like our MAS suit, with like a bunch of like a turkey suit with like a bunch of,
oh geez.
And I'm like, wow, you guys want to put that on and go swim in the ocean? Wow. Like, you're going to drown. Yeah. Like, this is a dumb idea. Anyways, so one of those guys reached out and said, hey, he had no idea I was retiring. He said, hey, do you realize there's a job at SITKA? And Gore acquired SITKA. He said, I think you'd be perfect for the job. And I'm like, you got to be kidding me. So I applied. And I'm really getting close to my window of getting out, like within a couple months. Still nothing solid. I was going to move back to Salt Lake. I had a home there. I had some family there. So I had a fall, that's where I was going. I knew that. And anyways, I go through the process, great interview. And they said, the answer is not no, it's just not now. Well, what I didn't realize was the job I was applying for, which was this big game product manager, it didn't exist until just a few months prior when they were restructuring the company. And so I was going to be the first one. And the person who I was kind of taking the reins from was the founder of the company, our mutual friend, Jonathan. So of course, try to fill those shoes. Right. So that was so anyways, they went through this long deal. I end up leaving Alaska, moved to Salt Lake, get a job at Beyond Clothing with my dear friend, Rick Elder, doing some really cool specialized stuff for some, different units. And I was enjoying it, but I knew it was not going to be, the ultimate thing I wanted to do. And
long term.
Sure enough, SITKA calls back, or the hiring people call back, and they're like, hey, you said to keep us on your short list and that you were, always available to talk. And I was like, yeah, absolutely. Well, the founder wants to talk to you. Would you be willing to talk to him? So I talked to him. I was in Seattle at the time. And there's going to be a backstory to this. So anyways, I talked to Jonathan on the phone, and he's like, hey, man, we want to bring you out to Bozeman to interview. I go out there. My first real job interview, like ever in my life. Right. So I show up there, a big, like 8-hour long interview process. I'm in the Bozeman airport drinking Willie's whiskey, like it's going out of style, wondering if I screwed it up. And my one chance to ever work for the company was gone, And Jonathan called me I'd been out of the office 2 hours, and he called me. He said, do you really want this job? Like, you really know what you're getting yourself into? And I said, I want the job. I have no idea what I'm getting myself into. And he goes, fair enough. And so that's how, basically I got the job. Well, what I didn't realize, Jack, is that you and Jonathan are friends. And the way Jonathan tells the story anyways, that you and he are riding a chairlift out of probably Tahoe somewhere, Squaw.
Yeah, Squaw. I think we're Alpine, because Squaw might have been, anyway, Squaw or Alpine. I think it was Alpine that day. But,
and I don't know if you asked the question or however my name came up, and Jonathan realized that you and I knew each other and we had worked together. And that's literally what got me the phone call with Jonathan and ultimately the job. So I owe you my job and my current career. Seriously, it's all about who you know, right? And as you know, like in our previous world, and I would say even in life now in general for everybody, like reputation is everything. Hard to get, easy to lose. But no, I owe you that. And I think I've told you that story before, but I'm like, you have got to be kidding me how all this, comes together. So yeah, I've been doing that almost 7 years now. And,
cool. No, I remember it so well.
And loving it.
I remember that so well, because I built up all this leave up until through my last deployment to Iraq. And that would be the last one that I would actually tactically maneuver guys on the battlefield. And after that, it was my troop commander tour. And after that, it's admin. And for those listening, like, yeah, it sounds very impressive.
You weren't too psyched about that.
I was not.
I remember you weren't too psyched about that.
And I was lucky that I had those enlisted years, because I was creeping up on 20 at the time anyway. So same thing as with you. I had that couple years to take a breath, to look around, to study, think about transition, figure out that, hey, aligning passion and mission together in the post-military chapter of life is of vital importance, and maybe something you should put some thought into. And so I was very lucky that I had that time to do that. But point being, I had accumulated quite a few days of leave over the previous 17, 18 years, and I started taking that when I got to Buds and as the COO, and started taking that leave with my family, because the pendulum was on the side of the team for all those other years.
Yeah,
and I decided to get back that I was going to get out and move on and pursue this passion for writing, this next dream. And so I started taking leave and started going to the mountains with the kids and meeting up with Jonathan up in Tahoe and that sort of thing. So yeah, I remember distinctly we were on the chairlift. I met him at I think Squaw was closed for some reason, or for whatever reason we ended up going to Alpine, and we're on that chairlift and we're just talking about transition and future and how things are going at SITKA and what I'm thinking about as I get ready to get out and all that sort of thing. And he's like, hey, do you know this John Barklow guy? And I was like, what? And he's like, yeah, we're thinking about him for a position or something along those lines. And I was like, snatch that guy up right now. Like right this very second. Do not let him go. I distinctly remember that. And but that was super cool, because I don't know if you remember, but you gave me my my physical training test for OCS.
No.
Yep. I think I still have because I saved all that paperwork, so I think I still have your signature on a
that's awesome.
Pull-ups.
That's awesome.
So yeah, it's so I think I still have that paperwork, because I saved all my those like recommendations for OCS and all those other things, paperwork you have to fill out, all the tests and all that stuff. So I think I have it, because I saved it to give to other guys that were getting ready to go thinking about it, so as a model for them. And so yeah, you gave me my test for officer candidate school. Yep.
Well, what's so funny about that is I remember a few guys, but I remember distinctly you and Andy checking into Team 5, right? Because it was this, I mean, the old nostalgic days. What was it? Used to be UDT 21.
Yeah.
Big grinder in the middle, right?
Yep.
But I remember you coming around, probably just getting signatures, checking into diving or whatever. And for whatever reason, like I was so impressed, even though you were new to the Navy, you weren't young. And I think you were probably, were you in E4 then?
23-ish, probably when I got there. I was 22 in Bud. So yeah, probably 23-ish.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. Were you in E4 or E5 or something?
3 coming in the door. Maybe you got E4 after Buds. If I was in E4, it was like they just put it on to walk across the street.
I could just tell you were so much more mature than either your rank or your time in service, right? And so yeah, I was just always impressed by that, and it stuck in my mind. And then, of course, who knew where this would lead? But the other guy was Andy, right? And I've told Andy this, but so you're kind of like this, reserved, serious, mature guy. And I remember Andy like blowing onto the grinder at Team 5 with like his hair on fire and like shorts on and just going. He had just gotten free fall qualled, right, civilian wise, and he wanted everybody to go jumping. He's like, "Hey, want to go jump? Want to go jump? Want to go jump?" And he was just
he had
like
a lot
this,
of energy.
Oh my God, a lot of energy. And like in my mind, I remember that. But you and him, like, side by side, were like so different. But we all
it's like yin and yang.
We all ended up in the same place.
Yeah, we're definitely like yin and yang. He was the youngest guy in our buds class going through.
Yeah,
Hell
right.
Week,
So
but,
a total dichotomy between you and him. But
yeah,
no, I had no
idea.
idea.
True.
I had no idea. I had helped you on your way to become an officer. I don't know if I'm proud of that or not.
I know it's a tough one to, yeah. And that was, of course, pre 9/11 day, right before 9/11.
Yeah,
it was the fall. No, the spring or late winter of 2001. And really had 9/11 happened in December of 2020 or January 2021.
You'd have never gone down that path.
Probably would not have gone to us, yes.
Yeah.
But you probably remember some of the leadership that I had in my first couple of platoons there that left a tad bit to be desired. So rather than just complaining about it, as part of the E5 mafia, I decided, okay, I can either do that or I can go and try to do it better than it was done.
Yeah, but those years really helped you to for the bulk of your career to be forward deployed on the front line with the guys. It's just that kind of tail end piece that we all probably have to do at some point in our career. But you were able to work that pretty well.
It was a good time to be there because you got to see how things were before that golden Connex box opened, before you got that golden credit card, before maybe a little entitlement creeped in, when you had to buy your own gear, you had to make your own gear, you made your own ghillie suit, you sewed your own patches on the side, or if you couldn't, then you paid somebody in beer in the in the airlock to do it for you. So yeah, those days were a little different, but I wouldn't trade them for anything. They were amazing.
Yeah.
It was a cool time to to be in and to be scrapping and to be figuring things out. And then you had some sort of a base when 9/11 hit, because really the only guys with experience when 9/11 hit were people that maybe did a couple of things in Bosnia, guys that had been in Mogadishu, these flashpoints, but not sustained combat operations, which is why we still had most of the gear from Vietnam, because that was the last time that they'd done sustained combat operations. And we just picked up those tactics. And what did we do? We dropped the jungle tactics from Vietnam in the mountains for training. We dropped it in the desert. In urban warfare training scenarios. And then after 9/11, then we got to see how different really things were in the mountains, in cities, different places. And you had to adapt very quickly, which we proved we could do quite well by necessity. You just have to do that.
Yeah. But like I said, the mindset, the culture of that community is always such that you may not do it all the time, but it's always there. And when you have to do it, it can be turned on very quick. It's like, you don't want to live in the other, but when you turn it on and you are adaptive, like, it's a great place to be, when that's happening.
Oh yeah, there's a lot of opportunity there.
A lot of opportunity,
as you saw, as we all saw that. So I often wonder what it's like now for people coming in that now have essentially this 20 years of adaptation, this 20 years of gear development, of tactics development, and tweaking things here and there, and refinement, and all the rest of it. What it's like to come in as a new guy today, rather than to have been a part of that evolution where it's happening so quickly. And especially as we're pulling out of places like Afghanistan, obviously Iraq, and places like that. So it'd be an interesting time to be in, especially with the rise of social media and people coming in that are very comfortable with sharing quite a bit of their personal lives with the world. Because for us, when Facebook came out, or remember MySpace even first, it was like, what the, like, this isn't good. But now, if you don't have some sort of a backstory in social media and the virtual space, now that's the red flag for foreign intelligence services when they're looking at people doing some things maybe on the darker side of special operations. So it's a very interesting time to be in. But
I don't think any of us had those accounts. I mean, until we were after we were retired.
Well after. I mean, right before the first book came out, I was like, looked at it just like I did at the battlefield. And I was like, okay, what can I do now that an author couldn't have done in 1975, 85, or 95? oh,
Mhm.
I need to look at this Instagram thing. I need to look at this Twitter thing. I need to build out a
Yeah.
website. I need to build out a newsletter. I need to do some things that help support this product, which is the book. But I
Yeah.
need all these supporting efforts. If we're talking in military terms, all these supporting efforts to get the word out and build out a readership that allows me to do what I love doing, which is the writing piece. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
but I love learning new things. So it's great to be able to do this and do all those other things as
Yeah.
well.
Yeah. But, my concern about the gear is that, the government in general and its infinite wisdom. I mean, you can see this sine wave.
Mhm.
So I came in, and like I said, late 80s, we still had Vietnam era gear. There was that little blip of, the first Gulf War. I got to go over there, come
Nice.
back. And then I
What'd you guys
remember
do over
that
there?
we were just sitting there kind of as a search and rescue
Okay.
asset. Yeah, just, it happened so quick. I got
Yeah.
some really good stories for another time, but yeah,
Were you on a
just
carrier
big.
for that, or were you on
No,
a
no, no, we
amphib or
were on
something?
land. No, we were on
Okay.
land. And because we were just kind of like that out there in the Pacific, they're like, hey, just launch 6 guys, get them there. This thing's going to happen.
Nice.
And we just need some assets.
Oh, very
So
cool.
yeah, it was a fun time. But I remember, the leadership getting us together, which I said is basically was a bunch of eights and nines. And at this point, there were probably 6 of us young guys, maybe 7, something like
Yeah.
that. And they said, administration's changing, the war's over, things are going to get rough, funding's going to get cut.
Mm.
But if you stay around long enough, it'll come back, right? Which it did. And then it came back again, even bigger with after 9/11. But and I don't keep my finger on the pulse of it anymore.
Mhm.
Partly as a survival mechanism, and partly because hey, I'm the old guy, nobody wants to talk to me. But my concern is, like, I've already seen some of the gear start to drop off, some of
Mhm.
the training and capabilities start to drop off. I mean, there's capabilities that we obviously didn't leverage that we probably need to go back to,
Mm.
but it's like an all or none thing sometimes in the military. And
Yeah.
it's like, okay, well, wherever the next conflict is, we're going to have to kind of do the same thing that we had to do, which is, hopefully we're not as far in the basement, but we're still going to have to come back. We're going to have to work on the training. We have to work on the gear. um and it's just sad to see sometimes, but it's like, listen, I did my part, we did our
Yeah.
part. Unfortunately, unfortunately, it's somebody else's opportunity now
Yeah.
to kind of take the ball and run with it.
Yeah.
But it was amazing to see the change from 88 to 2000 whatever 14. Like, it was
Yeah.
just absolutely dramatic, and needed to be done. I just hope it doesn't have to be done in such drastic
Right.
form again in the future.
Right. Yeah. I guess time will tell. But yeah, torch has
Yeah.
been passed. But now you're working on all this awesome stuff at SITKA. So you get in the door at SITKA
Oh,
and you start working on products, and you don't see them really come to fruition for how long does it take to go through that whole
it
process?
took
Like a
about two and a
year
half
and a half.
years since
Okay.
I got, yeah. Well, yeah, about 2.5 years. When I got there in January 2015. I think our products launched in just say June, July of 2017. So,
Okay.
which, I mean, those 2 years were like killing me, right? But uh, all I tried to do is take everything I knew and had learned and applied and seen
Yeah.
work and understood, and tried to apply it to the hunting industry. Because interestingly enough, just like I said, the military was kind of behind the times
Hmm.
from the outdoor industry. The hunting industry at large, except for Sitka, which was kind of this innovator at the time of
Yeah.
bringing like mountaineering quality clothing, to what we'll call mountain hunting. Um, but as a general rule, the hunting market was, I mean, they were at least 10 years behind the outdoor industry. And
Yeah.
again, the mindset and the understanding, the
Yeah.
education, and all that stuff. And so that was why I wanted to work for them, because it was the perfect synergy for me. And so I just tried to do the same thing. I'd worked on some, what did we call it? Oh, geez, I'm going to forget, but like the camo, personal signature management, right?
Okay. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I was like, hey, we need to develop a new camouflage for big game hunting. I've got this knowledge. I have some, let's apply it, let's tweak it. So, anyways, that's what I've been able to do and I'd like to think that, I've kept. I'd like to say at this point, that SICA's allowed me, and the company has allowed itself to not only keep up with the outdoor market, but in my opinion, with some of the things we've done technology wise and some of the designs, we have pushed past even some of the highest performing outdoor
Oh yeah.
brands in the market. So, I compare myself to like an Arc'teryx
Yep.
or a Patagonia, and
Mm-hmm.
I'd like to think that we are neck and neck. And sometimes I do a little better in some things, and get technology first, and sometimes they come back. But I think we've elevated ourselves to the
Oh
highest
yeah.
level at SITKA of the outdoor industry as a whole.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I remember talking to Jonathan. Oh gosh, you're high school, talking about that sort of thing, talking about how that why is my Patagonia, my Arc'teryx, my North Face at the time back then, why is that so much different than the stuff I get at Cabela's that just has
Hmm.
just a different color essentially.
Right.
So talking about that for years, and then he's the guy that did it and made it happen. And I love it when you like testing out those lightweight pants when I went to Africa. That was
Yeah.
awesome.
The
I love
Ascent
doing that
pants. Yeah.
stuff. So cool. And it's very cool to have now this, like I was talking about, having all that gear from the military. Well, knowing Jonathan my whole life, we went to high school together and being friends for all this time, like I have this history of SITKA gear. Now, like it looks like if you go outside here into our closet, into the garage, it's like a SITKA store exploded. There's just stuff everywhere. And,
Yeah.
the early stuff, stuff, all these different patterns and all this. The hardest part is finding the right piece, because there's so much to go through. I'm like, where's that thing?
Yeah.
And I
Exactly.
love it. I love that you guys are up there and you're with the biggest dogs in the outdoor industry. There's no doubt about it. And pushing the envelope at all times. And it's fantastic. I love seeing it. I love that you were there doing this. It gets me so fired up. And then now you've embraced some social media as of late. You are out there. It took a while. I mean, it took a little bit of time. And you had one picture with a cat on it for about 4 years, I think.
I did. Yep.
And you may have had the most followers with one photo up
With
there
one
of
photo.
anybody. Yeah. But now you actually have a channel where you're putting out information and you're talking about these different things as far as survival and travel in the backcountry and layering systems and all this sort of thing. So what made you decide to finally embrace that and do that? And where can people find that?
Yeah. So I'll just say that, so some things happen in the market. Some brands we're talking about some things, some of which were things that you and I had worked for or with in the
Mm.
military, and they were bastardizing some stuff, and
Mm.
the bastardization of it was okay, but I felt that the information and education they were putting out there was dangerous to the consumer, because
Okay.
the people that were putting out the information actually didn't understand what they were saying. They were just mimicking, right? And so
Yeah.
mimicry can be not a great thing if there's no foundation to that
Right.
knowledge. And so, kind of like what I said, where the gear in the hunting industry was kind of 10 years behind. Well, unfortunately, the education and the information in the hunting industry is also 10 years behind. So, you and I have talked. We grew up. We're backpacking. We're hunting. We're going out there and trying to figure these things out. We're going on Knowles courses and all these
Hmm.
things to build this base of what I'll call just foundational knowledge, right? So,
Yep.
when we choose to go into the military and now you're applying tactics, you're going to go into the field and learn how to hunt a bull elk. Like, you've already got the care and feeding side down, but that doesn't really exist anymore because of social media. Everybody wants to go right to the hunting of the elk or right into the teams and go into the mountains in Afghanistan, but they don't understand that you need all this other stuff.
Yeah.
And this other stuff is really what makes you competent and capable and deadly in either the military or hunting application.
Yeah.
So, anyways, I just realized that I could either go home and be pissed off about it, or I could finally, sack up and stop being a wuss and put myself out there, because I miss teaching. I realized I missed teaching. I missed a lot of things about the military, but the communicating of information and seeing people take that and run with it.
Mhm.
As much as I was doing great things at SITKA, that part of my life was kind of missing.
Okay.
So, I talked to you, and you gave me some great advice. And so I started this, an Instagram page, or I had an Instagram page with the cat photo. And basically, what the Instagram is all about is just trying to communicate information, right? So it's called Knowledge from Storms, which is, all these difficult times that we experience in the mountains, in the wilderness, in the backcountry, are great learning opportunities. And you and I are very well versed in, writing down our lessons learned, doing hot washes immediately after coming back, doing debriefs. But the hunting industry is not, but they're doing similar things, right? They're going out there, they're putting themselves 8-10 miles in the wilderness, they're going out there in inclement weather. So, trying to basically take the things that I used to teach and applying them and providing them to the hunting community to try to make them more capable and competent. And it's not just the hunting community; it's anybody. It could be Boy Scouts, it could be a backcountry skier, it could be a person who wants to learn to backpack. But the lack of information that's out there that's really based on solid foundation of experience and skills. And then, like I said, that feedback loop of not just having the information, but understanding how to convey it to somebody in a meaningful way, or give them 3 different ways that, one of them may spark with them because they learn a different way. Like, coming at it from an educational perspective really didn't exist. So anyways, that's what I've been doing. And I said, I'm going to do it for a year. So I basically, it kind of evolved, but I basically do a video a week.
Yeah.
And so it evolved where I said I'd do it for a year. And after that year, if I liked it and the community of people that followed liked it, then I would continue to do it. But I always, because it's my platform, I reserve the right to quit at any time I want. Right. So that was kind of my my emotional out. So it's been past a year. I'm going to tell you that, the conversations that we've had about this, I definitely took to heart. Within the next, probably by the end of July, so within the next 2 weeks, I'm getting ready to launch my website, Knowledge from Storms.
That was my next question.
Yep. So Knowledge from Storms is going to launch. The landing page is up right now.
Nice.
This is the official announcement of that.
Awesome.
And I give you the credit for that.
No.
So it's going to be it's going to be online education. I don't know where it's going to go. I have a lot of ideas. I've got a lot of things in the work. I have to balance a full-time job.
Right.
But I got to tell you, in the last year and a half that I've been doing this, I've felt, more alive and more energized, and this kind of the creator side of it. So, which obviously you understand, listening to you and Stephen Pressfield and reading all his books and listening to some things, the War of Art and all that. I've really embraced it. And so, I've got a lot of articles that'll be on the website, some of these podcasts, a bunch of videos that I've created. There's a YouTube channel that's going to launch when the website launches, and then we'll just see what follows after that. But some really cool things that I've got, in mind and in the works, and have working with some other people. But again, I give you all the credit for that, because I probably wouldn't have. Maybe I'd have had the idea, but I definitely would have been pushed, like you said. Hey, if you're going to do this, and we know this to be true, but if you're going to do it the right way. Go all in, commit to it. And that's what I've done. So I'm really excited. The website looks, I think it looks badass.
Awesome. I didn't know there was a landing page up. I'm going to check it out right after this.
Literally the landing page launched today, because I knew I was going to be talking to you, and I don't know when this, will air, but I wanted to make sure that kind of had my ducks in a row. I got videos uploading to YouTube right now.
Awesome.
I've been working on this book for, 7 years. And I've started to stop calling it a book and call it a manual, because I don't want to give too much away, but I've got this idea in my head of what this thing can be that, at least in this space, I've never seen this type of format before. So I'm going to keep working on that, but the website will be a way to communicate in a longer format, give a lot more detail than I can on Instagram. Instagram limits me to 15 minutes. I'm obviously long-winded. I love what I do. I'm passionate about it. I truly want to get the information out there to people and help them. So it's been awesome. And I can't wait for this website to launch. So, so that's kind of what I've been doing, running parallel to my quote day job. And really, COVID was an opportunity for me to do that. And I know a lot of people have suffered because of it, but for me personally, it was one of the best things that happened in my life, in the sense that I was told to work from home. I'm a disciplined enough person that I can do that.
Mm-hmm.
But it also gave me what I would tell you, Jack, is the best work-life balance I've ever had in my life. So I'm going to be married 30 years in September to Jules.
Nice.
We've gone through a lot of craziness, being both in the military. Um, but being able to be a little bit more around her, because I just pour myself into my work. It becomes my life, but she's my life. And being able to have that all together where, hey, I can go for a walk with the dogs and then I can go do a workout. No, I jump into meetings and I'm on meetings till 9 o'clock because I talk to Asia a lot, or I'm up at 5 in the mornings for meeting. But it also gave me opportunity to pursue this other thing that I might not have carved out the time to do, had I not been we've all been kind of forced into this new way of life.
Mm-hmm.
So I wanted to come out of COVID and not say, well, hey, I just wasted the last year and a half.
Right.
I wanted to come out ahead. I wanted to come out farther ahead than I would have been if I hadn't done things. So, a lot of other things I've been doing, but I'm really excited about this, as you can tell.
Awesome.
Give you a lot of credit. And I'm super psyched because the response has been very positive. And I hope that can just continue, and I can continue to, create a movement where, these people, if they want to start because of social media at a higher level on the rung of the ladder, that I can help them get there, and maybe not start, where you and I started, kind of in the basement.
Awesome. I'm so fired up. I'm going to check out the landing page after this, and it'll probably, come out in a couple of weeks, but I'm going to check that out. And then is it still, Instagram still the same? Is it J Barklow? Is that what it is?
Yeah. So it'll stay J Barklow for a little while longer. I'll eventually transfer it over to Knowledge from Storms, but right now it's still J Barklow because my name's somewhat recognizable and searchable.
Yep. So, and then is that the symbol for it? I saw that icon.
Yeah. So this is, so I got a logo. So this is the logo for Knowledge from Storms. We're going to have some, hats, t-shirts, things like that.
Yeah.
I was up talking to our friend Andy a couple of weeks ago to just see how he's been doing things. But it's been exciting. And honestly, I never, just once again have kind of surprised myself and never saw myself doing this. Never saw, my brother, he likes to bust my balls sometimes. And he's a doctor, and he says, hey, how's life in the fashion industry? And, I laugh, but if you'd have told me 10 years ago that, I'd know as much about fabrics and thread manufacturing as I do, I'd have told you no. But being able to apply it in this cool way in the hunting industry for Sitka, it's like, I don't know. It just seemed like a natural, again, moving in that direction, knowing kind of what you want, not knowing all the details, but just moving, action, forward motion, will get you, at least for me, has gotten me, with a lot of luck and definitely some good mentors have gotten me this far.
So awesome. So I've been wanting you to write a book for the longest time, and I'm so excited that it's progressing, but awesome to have that tied into a website, tied into these different social media platforms, and to be able to share that knowledge with the widest audience possible is amazing. And I love when I go on, where I see you do your 15-minute instructional videos sharing knowledge on Instagram. I love it because it for me, I have so many things going on. And what I love doing is going to the backcountry and doing these things. And for me, it's like, oh, I can use that in a book, or, oh, I can use that on my next hunt, or geez, I totally forgot about that. I really need to remember that the next time I'm up in Alaska, or whatever it is. Just because, that isn't my industry. It's part of my passion and part of what I've always loved and what I incorporated in my novels and into my life. But I need to keep moving forward as well. And so seeing you do those, I'm always like, oh man, that is so awesome. So I love those. So highly encourage everybody to do that, and then visit check out the Instagram and hit the landing page and stay on top of things, especially when the book comes out or whatever else you have going on comes out. Cause
well, that's why I wrote the book. I originally wrote it because I didn't want to forget everything I knew. I didn't know what I'd be doing in the future.
Right.
So I was like, if I don't document it now, and I look back and I'm like, man, did I really do that? But if I hadn't done that and had the timestamp on it, and now been able to progress those things, right, and always advance. But that's why I did it kind of as a written record.
Oh, so awesome. I'm so fired up. And I'm also super fired up because SITKA is obviously in my novels, and if people flip to the acknowledgments, they'll see your name in all of the books. But it's really cool to see as they film the series for Amazon that I don't want to give too much away, but SITKA's in every book. and it would make sense that it's also in the series. So I'm super
I
excited to
cannot
see.
wait for that series to come out. I cannot wait. I mean,
I'm so fired
with all
up.
the people that I see continuing to kind of be participants and and kind of help out. I mean, yeah, it's going to be incredible. It
Yeah,
can't not
they're
be
doing a good
incredible.
job. Well, I
Yeah.
mean, who knows what happens when they get to editing or whatever else, but right now it's looking really good. But I'm super excited for you, for Jonathan to see Sitka up there in a couple different ways. So I guess I'll leave it at that. So not just like a camouflage pattern worn once. There's a little more in there as well. So yeah, so that'll be really cool for you to see that, for Jonathan to see that, and for people that go out into the backcountry to see that as well. So
Yeah.
I'm super fired up for that. But man, thank you so much for for being you, for taking the time to do this, and for taking that next step to share that knowledge with everybody else out there, because there are a few people that have had the experiences that you have, that have had this background with these layering systems, and being able to take like that technical knowledge and then actually apply it to personal experience, test it out themselves, and come up and then tweak it and then share it. Like it's awesome. It's awesome. As you can tell, I'm a huge fan of you and all that you have going on. And man, I want to thank you for your friendship over the years, for getting me into OCS.
I got to put that on my resume. I had no idea if you wouldn't have said that, but no, thank you as well. Like I said, I owe you a lot. What's been fun is, in the military, you're kind of forced to work together, so to speak. You don't get to necessarily pick all the people you work with, but as all of us have kind of come to our tenure and we've retired, that the gravitational pull is bringing together these like-minded individuals, like you, myself, Andy, and it's really cool to see this next chapter in my life. I'm stoked on what you're doing. It's been unbelievable, and I can't wait to see this miniseries.
Oh, thanks, brother. Thank you so much. And
Yeah,
I wish I was going to see you at TAC or at up at Sitka and Bozeman, but I'm going to be locked down, I think, writing
understood.
this next novel. But
It sounds like you have the title for it already, though, right?
got the title in the blood, and
Yeah.
yeah, it's a good one. I've wanted to explore this theme for a while. So it's a sniper on sniper, but with little technology and some modern day, I guess the best way to describe it, cyber monitoring of populace is kind of incorporated in as well. So anyway,
Awesome.
yeah, I'm excited to get that going, but hopefully I'll see you soon. Hopefully we'll get back up there to
Yes.
Bozeman and say hello to you up there, or see you in the mountains. And we got to get out and hunt together soon. I have one coming up this September, going to the Wrangles in Alaska.
Oh, nice.
After
For sheep.
moose up there.
Oh, moose. Okay.
Yeah, moose this
Awesome.
time. So I'll be touching base with you for sure before then, just to make sure that I have all my stuff squared away, all my SITKA gear squared away. If there's anything else you want me to test up there,
Oh, I got some stuff. Yep. I got
nice.
some stuff.
Awesome.
Yep.
I love it. I love it. So yeah, I think that's early September, but yeah, man, hopefully we can get a field together soon.
Hopefully. Yeah.
Awesome, brother. Well,
Thank you,
thanks
Jack.
for everything, and
All right.
take care, man. Welcome to the gear highlight portion of the Danger Close podcast. All right, since my guest today was John Barklow, the big game product manager at SITKA, I figured it would be appropriate to talk about some SITKA gear. Now, SITKA gear, if you followed me for a while on Instagram or any of the social channels and have read any of the novels, you'll know that I'm a big fan of SITKA gear. I'm also a big fan and admirer of any company that changes an industry, really moves the ball forward. And there is no doubt that SITKA is that kind of a company. And also helps that I grew up with Jonathan Hart, who founded SITKA, and to have been a part of it from the outside looking in, from the inception of the idea all the way through today, is so cool to see the evolution of the idea, of the brand, of the products. So can't say enough good things about Jonathan Hart, about John Barklow, about SITKA as a brand, and what they've done for the hunting industry, and now what they are doing for clothing in extreme environments in general, not just as it relates to hunting. So I'll cover a couple of things. I think they call this the Bino Bivy. So this thing, I've been using this for years now, since it first came out. Got the Swarovskis in here. These are the 10 by 42s that have the rangefinder in there. So that's super helpful. Been using these forever. Love this Love this thing right here. And then this is the new one. So I haven't had a chance to use this one yet, but I'll be using this in September. And I think they call this the Bino, Mountain Bino Optics Harness or something along those lines. But this is the evolution, once again, evolution of the Bino harness. So I'll be testing this out in Alaska in September, but very cool. Be getting that all set up soon. This here, SITKA pattern. See that? Bam. Yeah, SITKA pattern bow. This is the PSE NVN NTN EVO 33. That's it. But yeah, this thing is sweet. John Dudley built this thing up for me, and this thing is awesome. And of course, John made this one in SITKA pattern because of that history. So very cool. Thank you, John Dudley, for building that up at Nock On. And of course, everybody at SITKA. Freaking awesome. This pack right here, I think this is the Ascent 12. It's kind of hard to keep all the products straight because it does look like a SITKA store or factory exploded in our home. And in the garage in particular. But I think this is the Ascent 12. Love this thing. Kind of a day pack. So well thought out. This thing is awesome. Love this. And then my day pack, as far as go riding travel, is the Drifter. So this is like, I guess, a lifestyle backpack, I guess you call it. But yeah, love this backpack. This thing is with me every day as I go to write or I'm traveling or whatever else. So these are awesome. And then the Drifter series of duffel bags. The only reason I don't have one right now is because the kids have taken them to camps this summer. And those are great. I'm a huge fan of those Drifter duffel bags. So awesome. And yeah, SITKA Gear. There's not a day that goes by that I don't have some sort of a touch point with SITKA. So and like wearing this t-shirt, these pants right here. I don't even know the kind these are, but I love these SITKA pants and everything else they have going on. So this right here, I know I've talked about this, I think in another gear highlight video, but this right here is the new sleeping bag. And look at that packaging. Can you see that? My wife thought they were just sending me some cardboard boxes, but yeah, this is the new sleeping bag right here. And once again, I think I'm going to be trying this out in Alaska in September as well. So very cool. So SITKA, thank you guys for everything, and keep crushing. Thank you for tuning in to the Danger Close podcast, Ironclad original, presented by SIG Sauer. You can find John Barklow on Instagram at JBARKLOW. So that's at JBarklow. And then you can check out his new website, knowledgefromstorms.com, and check out all that he has going on there. I am at Jack Carr USA. And if you liked our conversation, be sure to leave a 5-star rating and review to help counter some of those big tech algorithms. So until the next time, take care out there. Keep fighting. And a special thank you to Schnees. I've been using Schnees boots for over a decade now. As you can tell, for these ones right here, just my favorites. These are the granites. I think every hunter should have a pair of these in their quiver. But these guys right here, these are the ones that I wear when I'm going into the backcountry and hope to come out heavier than when I went in. So right here, granites, awesome boot. Absolutely love these. You can see these have been worn quite a bit. These are some of my other favorites right here. So these are the Hunter 2s. These are, I would wear these all day, every day if I could. But amazing boot. Love everything they have going on over there at Schnees. So be sure to check them out. I have some new boots now. I think I have 10 pair right now. My wife has a pair. And then I just got a couple new pairs. And right here, these are the Beartooth. I've wanted these for a while, so super excited about trying out the Beartooths. That'll happen this summer and fall. And then the Kestrels right here. So those are a couple new pairs that I have in the arsenal that I'm looking forward to checking out here soon. So if you haven't heard of Schnees, check them out online, check out their story, check out their Instagram. The boots they make in an Italian boot factory. So those are handmade in Italy. The only place you can get them is through Schnees directly to you. So you're getting more boot for your money. And every part of these things, you can just tell how much care and how much time, energy, and effort goes into these boots right here. And what's also great about Schnees is that you can go visit them in Bozeman, or you can give them a call and tell them about where you're going to hunt, what you're doing, and they can make some recommendations for you right there on the phone. So, Schnees, thank you so much. And I'm going to read this part because you get 10% off. So I don't want to mess this part up. When you shop at Schnees, and that is SCHNEES.com, make sure you use the promo code JACK21, JACK21. When you do, you'll save 10% off your pair of Schnees boots and logo wear. These handmade hunting boots usually sell out fast, so grab your pair today. Take care of your feet. Don't compromise. Upgrade to Schnees. Again, that's Schnees, SCHNEES.com, and promo code JACK21.